Salam and Shalom. Welcome to the 11th annual NewGround Ramadan Iftar. My name is Aziza Hassan, and I am the Executive Director. This is our second Ramadan in pandemic, a month of self-restraint following an entire year of self-restraint, of doing with less, of holding fear, pain, and loss, and lots of uncertainty. I remember at the beginning of Ramadan last year, I was so worried that I would be snappy with my children, worried because there was this whole new world of uncertainty around me, and I get hangry. And they didn't want to focus on Zoom school, and I needed to lead an organization, and it all just felt so impossible. But to my surprise, the fasting actually calmed down my anxiety, and it helped me face my fears with important pauses. These pauses enabled me to lean into generosity. And so this year, Ramadan's timing feels spot on to me, because we all have a lot more reflecting to do. And fasting might just help us slow down enough to see how we might do something about the injustices in our world. Every other week since January, the changemakers in our Courage Accelerator program have been meeting. They've been sharing, listening, and witnessing, sticking to hard conversations about race and bias, and helping each other process. As they've been meeting, we've all been witnessing continued injustice week after week and month after month. Yet even in the midst of difficult conversations, it's important to slow down, stop, and appreciate one another. To do so, we need to lean into our goodness at the end of the day. One just like today, when after a full day of fasting, we find that our inner fitra, our inner goodness, shines just a little bit brighter. By slowing down, we can stop and see what our neighbors need and actually do something about it. Fitra sounds a lot like iftar because it's taken from the same Arabic root word. Iftar being this intentional moment of quenching our thirst and celebrating while being fully present together. In chapter 5 on the fasts in the Mishnah, the text reminds us to remember the past events of hardship, to reflect on those specific events, and fast. And that when we do so, the text says that we return to our inner goodness. Tonight, we invite you to lean into that goodness. When I was young, my family and I lived in Amman, Jordan. We were in an apartment building. We're literally like, my family and I were on a floor, then my cousins with one uncle, cousins with another uncle, my aunt had her own independent apartment. It was the typical Palestinian apartment building, all the family. We ran on Inshallah time 11 months out of the year. And Inshallah time basically is like, oh, I'll be there in 5 minutes, and you show up maybe 20 minutes later, but you recovered because it was all Inshallah time. But during Ramadan, everyone, no exception, was 2 minutes before the prayer. 2 minutes before the prayer. We meant business. The dates would be set out in these beautiful small plates all around so that anyone could have access to them. There would be individually poured milk glasses set out in rows along with bowls of soup. Multiple colorful main dishes would just make this beautiful table. But my favorite was the lentil soup. It was so simple. It had the perfect amount of spice and salt, and it coated my stomach with this instant calm that kept me full throughout the prayers before the larger meal. So much goodness and joy came out of that little bowl of lentil soup. It's also the point at which I remember laughter, because people would start to come alive, because they were so quiet when they were fasting. Tonight, we have some delicious goodness from the kitchens of friends, and we hope that you will delight in their recipes just as much as we have. We also have reflections from our changemakers, the talent of Craig Taubman, and the call to prayer from 3 different sanctuaries. I also want to extend deep gratitude to our sponsors and supporters who made this gathering possible. Your generosity enabled us to open this convening to all. Thank you. And so if you've joined us on Facebook, please take a moment and click share. Thank you. By clicking share, you're helping us share some of the goodness with others. I also want to thank our board of directors this evening and our host committee, our NewGround staff, our volunteers, and folks like Arman Ismail and Mustafa Zina who are making it possible for us to be in a lot of different places this evening. We are so glad that you are here, slowing down in the midst of uncertainty, and being there by each other's side is essential. With acts of hate on the rise against so many, we have work to do. The tears in our fabric are deeply concerning, and our social cohesion is in a critical state. And the way we work on this is to be alongside each other. NewGround was founded because the way that we, left to our own devices, engage around issues that divide us doesn't lead to a better tomorrow. So 14 years ago, a group of change makers built a table to which we continue to return. Because ultimately, the world that we live in isn't the world that can be. And so we offer programs for professionals and high school leaders who are willing to take a risk and share personal stories and connect heart to heart. Because when we do so, we're able to hold multiple truths all at the same time and see the good and value in one another. And now, for the mayor of Irvine, Farah Khan, and the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti.
Thank you, Aziza. Assalamu alaikum and shalom to you all. During the month of Ramadan, we are all called to reflect and to give. Today, let's reflect on where we are as we see a rise in anti-Asian sentiment, anti-Muslim bias, and anti-Semitism. It is more important than ever for us to stand together and celebrate our diversity. And more importantly, let's pledge to be an upstander, no longer a bystander. Together, we can end hate and build a community that is respectful and inclusive of all. I want to thank NewGround for this amazing evening. Here's to many more evenings with good food and even better friends. So today, I wish all those who are celebrating Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you and be safe.
Thank you, Aziza, so much. And thank you to NewGround for inviting me to join you tonight during this holy month of Ramadan. My thanks as well to Mayor Farah Khan for joining us this evening and for your incredible leadership and commitment to service as well. I'm proud to serve alongside you. And to everyone participating in this Iftar from home, Ramadan Mubarak. For Muslims here in Los Angeles and across the world, Ramadan is a time of introspection, to take stock of our inner lives, reflect on what matters most to us. This past year, we've held so much pain and loss brought on by this pandemic, by those who would seek to tear us apart through acts of hate. And now, as we're seeing an uptick of anti-Asian sentiment, of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim bias, it is more important than ever to stand together to affirm who we are in this city of angels, a place where we know that our diversity is our strength, where equity drives everything that we do, a city where everyone belongs. I want to applaud the efforts of Muslims, Jews, allies, and organizations like NewGround who are asserting those values and building a world that's safer and healthier, more generous and more just. That is the message of this holy month, a moment to celebrate revelation and to draw the faithful closer to God through prayer and fasting, through acts of kindness, and then to bring us together, to bring us closer through empathy and generosity and compassion. So let's continue to know that we can be together even when we need to be apart. And let's remember that strength comes from our faith, that love will carry us through, that resilience, resolve, and determination pave our path to returning to the embrace of family and friends, to iftars side by side, and to health and happiness in the year ahead. So stay hopeful and stay safe, and I wish you a blessed Ramadan.
Reset and realignment for the year.
Reflection and meditation.
Fasting.
Serenity.
Bounty.
Suhoor.
Today, I am changing myself. Rumi.
Strength.
humility,
sacred,
Ramadan dal,
spiritual renewal,
rededication,
the ritual of cleansing.
Dates.
NewGround Iftar is coming up soon.
My kids giddy with excitement about waffles for Sahur.
Dates.
Sharing while looking inward.
warmth,
my NewGround friends,
spiritual connection,
feeding the soul, and eventually delicious.
Growth through perseverance and deeper connection.
Dates.
community iftars,
Giving,
together,
Breaking fast with Muslims and Jews.
Learning from friends about cultivating patience.
connection,
reconnection,
dates,
peace,
welcoming,
Eid clothes,
sharing,
Dates.
community,
NewGround community.
prayer, and family.
and family.
Hi, I'm Rob Eshman.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Naomi Levy.
And we are so honored and so happy to join with NewGround tonight to celebrate and to cook.
So excited and so honored and just so happy to take part.
So we're cooking tonight like this dessert that really combines, I think it's, if you had to design a dessert for this event, from the ground up, you would have ended up with malabi. It is a dessert that comes from the Middle East. It's invented in the maybe 400s, nobody really knows, by Persians in Persia, brought to the Arab lands, given to an Arab general by a Persian cook. The general loved it so much he named it after himself, muhallabi. And it combines rice flour, the authentic recipe, rice flour, milk, sugar, and rose water. So over the centuries, of course, it's gone throughout the Middle East. It's gone through the Emirates, through Palestine, through Israel. Turkey has a version. It even made it to Europe, where the French call it blancmange. So the kind we're doing tonight is with almond milk. You could also use milk. You could use goat milk. You could use any kind of milk, but I like it with almond milk for some reason. And I'm flavoring it with willow water. And we're going to top it with a sugared calamansi, which is a Filipino fruit very similar to a kumquat. So I'll show you how to make all those things.
Robbie is the cook in our house, and he has been for the past 30 years.
30.
April 14th is 30. But he tells me that this particular dish is a dish that is generally served on Shavuot. Is that correct?
There's a Sephardic tradition to serve this for Shavuot. There's a Turkish Jewish tradition to serve this at Jewish weddings because it offers the promise of a sweet, milky life. And there's another Jewish tradition, a Sephardic tradition, to serve it for breakfast at Yom Kippur. So there's something...
That's our doggies.
There's a real connection here between this dish and the breakfast.
And that's our son. So I just wanted to share that I think it's so quite fitting, if this is a Shavuot dish, the parallels between Shavuot and Ramadan, both holidays about revelation, and Shavuot, really it's about the revelation and receiving of Torah, and we eat dairy on Shavuot, as Torah is like mother's milk to us, and I love the parallels between these two holidays, and Shavuot is again this time of counting and waiting between Passover for 7 weeks until we get to this place of revelation.
We better start cooking.
Okay.
So you're going to measure out your almond milk. You all have the recipe. You start by pouring a little of the almond milk in the, this is cornstarch. You could also use rice flour. Sure, but we're in a rush, so I'm going to start.
Okay, because I'm his sous chef. That's all I can say.
And get it smooth, and then you want to add, I'm adding willow water, which is again it's very Persian.
And
it's got a beautiful floral flavor.
It's our favorite tree.
Now that that's stirred up, you're going to take the rest of this milk and the sugar and combine it in a pot. You turn the fire on, pretty medium, and you start giving it a stir. And all you want to do is cook it until the bubbles start to appear. You don't have to get it to a boil. You don't want it to boil. Your big fear here is scorching the milk, right? So just get it to that point where the bubbles start to appear. At that point, you're going to add the cornstarch. You add the cornstarch and you're going to bring it to a rolling boil, and then lower the heat and just cook it for a good 7 minutes. It's going to take maybe 6 minutes until it gets thick. It should be nice and thick. At that point, because we don't have 7 minutes, you're going to take a strainer and you're going to have all your cups out. And you strain it into a cup. Can you see this on camera?
Yeah.
It's going to be thicker than this, but you'll think it's not thick enough. It's going to thicken. You put it in the refrigerator overnight, just 1 second, because we already did that.
It's like Julia Child's kitchen. He has the pre-done one.
And look at that.
It's like
it's
like a custard.
Beautifully. Now, you can see that right there. In the meantime, you've made a sugar syrup and you've blanched some of your fruit. You could use kumquats, you could use calamansi, you could use Meyer lemons, and you pour those right. I wish you could see this because it's really beautiful.
I can see
And
that.
this is going to be candied fruit. Candied fruit is such a well-known breakfast dish in every culture. After you candy the fruit, you're going to end up with a bunch of it because you had a big harvest this year. And you take a fork, or whatever you want. Oops, that's the one that didn't set. And you just put some candied fruits on top of this. And a little bit of the syrup. I'm going to do this so the camera
And then
can
you
see
get a
it.
spoon.
Get a spoon. I mean, is that not what you want to eat after you've been fasting all day?
Oh, it's so gentle, you know?
Really
And
easy on your stomach.
it's really good.
Oh,
Like I
unbelievable.
said, it's mother's milk from God.
We are so honored to have done this with you. We are so looking forward to seeing Anjum and Jihad. I've known Jihad since before we had to wear glasses to do these kinds of things. And have a wonderful holiday.
And we're so excited to pass the baton to Anjum and Jihad. And we both want to wish you just every blessing. Health, most importantly, in this very trying year. Health, joy, love, peace, and every blessing. Amen.
And a lot of mulabi.
Hello, and Ramadan Mubarak to those who are fasting and probably just broke their fast, and also to all of those from NewGround who are part of this incredible community. We can't be there together to break bread, which is really the way you form wonderful relationships, but we're here virtually, and we're here for each other, and that's what counts.
We're super happy to be here, and thank you to Rob and Nomi for the dessert first approach, which is always my preference, especially in Ramadan where your appetite shrinks a little bit and you want to make sure you get the good stuff in first. But we're going to do the second, or the first part, which is now becoming the second part of the meal, which is the main meal for breakfast.
And before we go too far, you probably should introduce myself. I'm Jihad
that's
Turk,
right.
and
I'm Anjum Mir.
And we're going to start with pita bread. So I prepared a dough, which is really just 3 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and a packet of quick rising yeast. So I'm going to, if you could put a little bit of flour on the...
We have
this did not rise.
Funny kitchen, so the camera's in a funny spot, but just bear with us. You'll see my hands a lot.
So I'm going to break off from this dough a sort of a small tangerine size. And I'm just going to say in preface to all of this, I love pita bread, and this is my first time ever making it. But I chose to make it today because growing up as a kid, my mom, even though she's American, she learned some Middle Eastern dishes, and one of them that was my favorite was when she made pita bread from scratch at home. And so what she when she baked it, it made these nice little pockets, and then we would take it fresh out of the oven, and we put butter on them, sometimes sprinkle a little sugar, and eat it almost like a dessert. Even though it's great with hummus, it's great with for making sandwiches. You can even use it for the base of a pizza. But everyone knows how to eat pita bread. But we're gonna find out if this works or not. But
Do you need to put it on a tray?
Fond childhood memory. Yeah, there's one right over there. So this is also the month of Ramadan, and so I'll say while rolling out this piece of pita bread, that we probably want it like a 1/4 inch thick from what I could glean. All right. So
do we need to grease the tray or put
just
some parchment?
a little parchment and a little dash of flour, no oil.
All right. A loud parchment ripping.
There we go. A little dash of flour. We're just gonna make one, because if it goes bad, we've only messed up one more, and it only goes in the oven for 4 to 5 minutes. So
yeah, that's good.
All right. So while that's baking, Enjam is going to put the final touches on the main dish for the evening,
which is dal. So growing up, my mom used to make this incredible, we called it emergency dal, because it was the thing that we ate when we were on a long trip, and we would come home and there was nothing in the refrigerator. Like there was nothing to be had, and no fresh stuff. So there are always lentils in the fridge, and lentils are one of those things that are eaten the world over. They're super high in protein, very nutritious, and they keep for a really long time dry. So you always have them available. And so many cultures in the Islamic world and also around the world in general have dishes that they make with lentils, rice and lentils, lentil soups. And in the Indian subcontinent, dal is pretty much a staple. And, in some places it's even referred to as kind of the food of the people who have very little, let's say. But it was really one of our favorite comfort meals growing up. And so you can check out the recipe, but basically I mix two different types of dal, cook them, skim off all of the sort of foamy stuff. That's really important. That's like a super magic tip, because dal, like all legumes, can make your stomach a little uncomfortable if you don't do that. So if you don't know that about legumes and cooking lentils, now you do. And then you add the spices, cook it some more, and then you do this thing on the side, which is cook up onions until they're brown and caramelized and super, super delicious. And you add them into the dal along with so I'm not gonna do that right yet. So you add a little tomato sauce. Maybe Jihad wants to bring the camera over so you can see what I'm doing. You wanna do that? Okay, so you have this yummy pot of dal, which has already been cooked and skimmed. And then I'm going to just add a little bit of tomato sauce to it into the onions and cook that up. That just gives them a little bit of body. And you fry that up and it becomes really fragrant. And the onions basically are diced onions and some garlic, of course. And you just let those things cook together. They don't even have to cook very long until you start to smell the tomato, and then you add them into the dal mixture. Wow, cast iron pots are serious business. Very, very strong arms to do this. But then you add all that in there, and then you mix it up. So it starts to look like that. And then you can sort of add whatever fresh ingredients you want. I really love to add cilantro.
So we are going to
Here, put that in there. And then we also we're like super chilly people, Kashmiris. If you're not sweating and your ears aren't on fire, it's not good. So chilies for sure if you can stand them. But we probably should check on the pita bread now. So
it's not rising, so that might have been a failure.
oh no. How's your pita bread going, Jihad?
Not so good, but you're gonna chop some
Okay.
chilies.
So yes,
let's
of course.
distract from the
Let's
failed
distract from
pita
the
bread.
failed pita bread to the chilies. So you always have to have good green chilies. And there are so many dishes that call for chilies on top. And during Ramadan, the goal, of course, in the evening is to drink as much water as possible. So I always say that if you would like to drink more water, eat chilies because they make you need water. So chilies are good. So just chop those up. And you don't have to throw them in the dish. I always just put them on the side so whoever wishes can have them. And that's kind of the final thing. And then you can leave some brown onions and put those on top for garnish, cilantro, chili peppers, lemon wedges that you squeeze on there. And of course you can eat them with pita bread or rice, which, you know, depending on what culture you're from, brown rice, white rice.
That pita bread did not puff up into a ball, so.
It was a failed iftar experiment. It's going. It's not the puffy kind of pita bread. It's the less vivacious kind of pita bread right now.
Let's at least show it.
Okay.
I don't mind displaying my failures.
Ramadan is a really good time for culinary experimentation because everyone is so hungry they'll eat anything.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So, you know, it's a little
flat.
It's a little flat and not cooked, but I'm gonna put it back in and maybe later it will be a little bit more cooked. Yeah.
It didn't rise in the refrigerator, so I knew something was wrong. Well, that is our meal, and we've already eaten for tonight, the iftar, so we have a chance to perfect the bread before tomorrow. And we made enough dal for tonight, and we ate that, and then we made half of it. The other half is now on the stove. We're going to eat that tomorrow night, and hopefully with some successful pita bread.
Yeah.
So we wish everyone a blessed Ramadan, and is it Shavuot now? I think in the Jewish tradition. So it's have a blessed Hag Sameach. I'm not sure what to say on Shavuot, but thank you so much for watching us and sharing this meal with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us and for letting us share something of our home with you.
Good evening, NewGround. It's a real honor and pleasure to be with you this evening. In the holiest of holy books in the Jewish tradition, the 5 books of Moses, the first book starts off with this notion, Lo tov heyot adam levado. It is not good for people to be alone. It's been an incredibly challenging year, and if anything, what this year has taught me is that we need each other and we are stronger together. Hine ma tovu manaim, how beautiful it is for brothers and sisters, for people to be together. Hine ma tov manaim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov manaim, shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be as one together. And what it was the gift. May it last forever. Hine ma tov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim, shevet achim
The first weekend I spent with my magic cohort was transformative and eye-opening. Muslims and Jews Inspiring Change is NewGround's high school leadership council made up of teens from across LA County. As I prepared for the opening retreat, I was nervous, unsure of what the weekend would hold and what I would bring to the table. It was a weird feeling, about to embark on a journey of deep dialogue and identity with a group of people that I had never met before. As we arrived at the campsite, we grabbed markers and butcher paper from the picnic tables and were asked to create a map of our lives up until that point. As we each presented our maps the next day, I was overwhelmed and honored by the vulnerability that everyone revealed in their stories. Each one of us went beyond surface-level aspects of our identity: school clubs, favorite movies, favorite ice cream flavors, to open up about defining moments in our lives. The trust and vulnerability that we built together laid the foundation for our community. A couple weeks later, we huddled in small groups on the carpet of the teen lounge upstairs at the Islamic Center, discussing family traditions. Since we already felt like we were a family, sharing what our traditions meant to us felt easy and natural. Some of my Muslim friends described Ramadan as a period of cleansing and a time for deep and heavy self-reflection. It brought to mind the way my family and I approach Yom Kippur. Members of my cohort may have come from backgrounds similar to mine or quite distinct, yet there was a connection in the values that we all shared. At the beginning of the session, our facilitators promised a surprise after our family stories, which kept us in suspense even while in deep conversation. The big reveal came when we learned that the cousin of one of our fellow magicians was Jerry of Ben & Jerry's. We piled down the stairs where we liberated the Ben & Jerry's ice cream from the freezer at the back of the social hall. And after all of that deep connection, we finally got to share some of our favorite ice cream flavors. Looking back on that moment, 25 teenagers, 2 facilitators, a crazy amount of noise, and more flavors than you can imagine, I have a deeper understanding of community. It was only my second time surrounded by these people, and yet it felt like home. Being able to look around and trust every person in that room was an amazing thing. And even as the pandemic started and progressively got worse, I was able to continue growing and learning with these people and leaning into some hard conversations that continue on with the Magic Alumni Group. This community allows me to not only have tough conversations through meaningful dialogue, but also further discovery of my own Jewish identity. These people provide me with an overwhelming amount of empathy and support in any given situation, especially when I need it the most. I am so grateful to live in a community with so many distinct flavors. I'm wishing you all a meaningful Ramadan filled with insight, and with Ben and Jerry in mind, much sweetness too.
Assalamu alaikum and shalom. My name is Adam Fakri, and I am a board member of NewGround. I would like to wish everyone a Ramadan Mubarak and thank you for joining our Iftar program this year. As we emerge from the most historic and unpredictable time for our country, we at NewGround also had to pivot our programs, messages, and strategy. And fortunately, I'm proud to say, thanks to the excellent leadership and staff, our programs have flourished online, and we have been able to continue to deliver the critical message of NewGround. After hearing Griffin's inspirational and impactful experience with the Magic program, I understand why I joined the board of NewGround. NewGround represents hope. NewGround represents understanding, and NewGround represents empathy. It offers a new perspective, new friendships, and most importantly, builds bridges between people, issues, and communities. As a child growing up in a Muslim immigrant family, I was always taught the importance of relationships and belonging to a strong community. My family was very important, and we would call all my grandparents, aunts, and uncles all over the world on special occasions to ensure that we were always in touch with each other. I also belonged to my religious Muslim community. Keeping up with the community required an extra effort, as I was also trying my best to keep up with my own identity of being an American Muslim. My parents instilled in us that the only way we would hold on to our identity as if we kept up with our communities. Not that this community was the best, but it was my safety net and the only thing I knew. It was my comfort zone. My first experience outside of my community was when I left for college on the East Coast. I vividly remember the day I received a handwritten letter from my new dorm roommate, Robert Mogioris from Denver, Colorado. He did a great job explaining where he came from, his family, the fact that he was very tall and wore a yarmulke, but the most important point was that he was an Orthodox Jew. This defined him. I remember thinking to myself, how will this work? Orthodox Jew and Muslim living together in a 10-foot box room for a year? Not having known anything about being Jewish, or for that matter, Orthodox Jewish, his letter gave me a preview of what it entailed. No electricity, no studying, no work Friday through Saturday for Sabbath. This certainly sounded interesting. During move-in week, our families met and both seemed to think that this was going to be an interesting experiment. Given the history of our cultures and religions, it seemed doomed for failure. It started off uncomfortable, unfamiliar, and strange. But can I tell you, the relationship worked and it blossomed. We had much more in common than we did different. We were both away from home for the first time. We both depended on our religious communities at home as our foundation. And most importantly, we both valued family and religion as our most precious possessions. Our differences became the glue that put us together, as we would discuss for hours how each of us did things differently. But in actuality, they had the same end result. The fact that we were roommates, we knew that we had to make this work. But the uncomfortable gray area was bridged through communication and the fact that we felt comfortable rather than uncomfortable with each other. That first year together shaped a lot of my college life and my personal and professional career going forward. It taught me many life-changing lessons. Build new relationships. I made a lifelong friend who I'm still in touch with today. Relationships are the key to anything you do in life. Appreciate how similar we all are, not different. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. This will always give you perspective. Take risks and be uncomfortable. This is the only way to personally grow. Be empathetic. This is the only path to true inner peace and empowering yourself. And finally, learn to listen. The only way to express an honest opinion is to listen first. As I think back on my college experience, I wish I had an organization like NewGround. When thinking of bridges in the literal sense, they connect. They make the impossible movement possible. They open new worlds by allowing people to explore beyond their own communities. This is what NewGround does for the Muslim and Jewish communities. Throughout this evening, I hope that you will see the critical role NewGround plays in building bridges, in enabling understanding, and most importantly, fueling the growth we can harness by working together as the one community, the human community. Through your generosity, support, and involvement, we can continue to make this mission and dream a reality, and hope you will continue to support NewGround and its programs. I hope this holy month of Ramadan brings us all peace, inspiration, and rewards. Stay safe, stay healthy, and empowered forever. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Hi, everybody. I'm Adina Lekovich, one of the co-chairs of tonight's event. As you may know, the signal that marks the end of the fast every day is the adhan, or the call to prayer. It's a beautiful melody that tells us the sun has set, and it invites all who hear it to remember God, be grateful, and to take time for the 5 daily prayers to connect with our Creator. It's performed at every mosque before every collective prayer, and it warms my heart every time I hear it. Usually, we would hear the call to prayer in the beautiful sanctuary at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. But tonight, of course, that's not possible. So instead, we get to bring you a really unique treat. Tonight, we're going to hear the call to prayer performed at 3 synagogues across Los Angeles by members of our very own alumni. They are Amin Mohammed, Wasi Momin, and Tariq Shauki. And we want to thank our friends at B'nai David Judea, at Temple Beth Am, and Temple Israel of Hollywood for inviting us to mark the final prayer of the day in their beautiful sanctuaries. It's truly a special moment, and we invite you to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and take in the adhan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول 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 الله
حي على الصلاة
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة
حي على الصلاة
حي على الفلاح
حي
على الفلاح حي على الفلاح
حي على الفلاح
حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Good evening, Ramadan Mubarak. My name is David Weiner, and I'm a proud NewGround board member. The call to prayer, this beautiful invitation that we just heard from Tariq, Wasi, and Amin, really moves me. I don't understand the words, but I do get goosebumps. It's the melody, the heartfelt delivery, but even more so, it's the juxtaposition, the power of what happens when our faiths decide to share each other's sacred spaces and rituals. NewGround itself is an invitation, not to prayer, but simply to engage. And just like some might need a reminder to come pray, NewGround's call is a reminder to open our hands, open our minds, and of course, open our hearts. So here's my invitation to you. Join us. or more applicable for most of you, join us more. Speaking for myself, I need NewGround right now more than I have before. Like most of you, I've worked really hard over the last year to make my pandemic world as small as possible, to avoid people as much as possible. And as we begin to imagine life post-pandemic, I need the call of NewGround to remind me of the power of engaging with others, that our small worlds get better by reaching out as far as possible to others. I need that reminder from NewGround that life is richer when we open our doors with curiosity rather than lock them out of fear. NewGround is only possible due to all of our generosity. So I ask you to please join me tonight. Use the link in the chat and make a donation before you sign off this evening. Thank you for being with us tonight at the NewGround Iftar. And now for a final song, we welcome Craig Tobman.
Two years ago at High Holy Day services at the Pico Union Project on Rosh Hashanah, I asked my resident Episcopal Rabbi, Nat Katz, who happens to be a priest, if he would give the final closing words at services. He was our board chair, and I wanted to honor him that way. And he came up on the fly and said, "Let it go, let it be, let it in." He said, that's the secret, nothing more. 3 months later was Hanukkah, and I wrote this song in honor of the Festival of Lights, in honor of Nat Katz. For the victories won a long time ago, let it in, let it in. For miracles and wonders and the ones we don't know, let it in, let it in. For where we are going, where we have been, we must be the light, for the light to come in. For the dreamers, the lonely, and those in between, let it in, let it in. For what was, what is, and what's yet to be seen, let it in, let it in. In moments of wonder, darkness or doubt, light one light each night for the light to come out. Let it go, let it be, let it in. Let it in, let it in, let it in, let it in. Let it go, let it be, let it in. For the downcast, the favored, the broken, the whole, generations to come, it is light we must sow. Let it go, let it be, let it in.